My parents didn't notice that I moved to another state, but now my father is calling me and demanding that I visit them, or he will stop paying for my college education. So I told him that I already graduated a year ago. Before we begin the story, take a moment to support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Your support means the world to our channel and helps us spread more shocking true stories to light. Now, let's get started. You know what's funny? My parents never even realized I moved to another state. 3 whole years, and they didn't have a clue. But now, suddenly, my father is calling me, demanding that I visit them, or else he'll stop paying for my college tuition. Too bad for him, though. I told him straight up, "Dad, I already graduated a year ago, and I make 10 times what you do." Yeah, let that sink in. But let me backtrack a little. See, I was always the forgotten kid in my family. My dad was completely obsessed with my younger brother. He practically worshipped the ground he walked on. Meanwhile, I was just there, invisible, ignored. When I got accepted into a top-tier college, my dad didn't congratulate me. He didn't even pretend to be proud. Instead, he looked me dead in the eye and said, "You're not going there. You'll go to the local college. We don't want your brother to feel jealous." Imagine that. My entire future dismissed just to protect my brother's fragile ego. But I played it cool. I pretended to be okay with it. I told my parents, "Fine, I'll go to the local college, but I want to stay in the dorms." That was a lie. A bold-faced lie. I took my scholarship and moved states away, enrolling in the prestigious college they tried to keep me from. And they never found out. But now, my father is suddenly acting like I'm part of the family again, demanding that I show up like nothing ever happened. So tell me, what would you do if the same people who ignored you for years suddenly wanted you back, just for show? The family that never wanted me. If you haven't figured it out yet, my family is all kinds of messed up. And I mean really messed up. That is, if you can even call a family. Because what do you call people who bring you into this world, only to cast you aside the moment they find someone they like better? Is that even family? I could have had a happy childhood. I could have grown up in a home where love was given equally, where parents didn't play favorites. But no, my parents, Patrick and Marin, were nothing but biased fools who treated me like I was nothing more than background noise. And all because of one reason, my brother, Roman. See, Roman was the baby everyone adored. The kind of kid who had that chubby-cheeked, golden-haired look that made people coo over him. Meanwhile, I was just there, an ordinary, skinny little boy that no one paid much attention to. Should that have mattered? No, but to my parents it did. Within a month of Roman's birth, he became their golden child, their pride and joy. And me? I was just the extra, the forgotten one. It wasn't like Roman was some kind of genius or prodigy. No, he was just better looking. And apparently, that was enough for my parents to place him on a pedestal and treat me like a second-class citizen in my own home. I can't even tell you how many times I stood in the background, watching my parents shower Roman with attention while I got barely the minimum of what a kid needs. They only cared enough to make sure I was alive, food, shelter, and that was about it. No love, no inquiriment, no worms. And Roman? Oh, he knew he was the favorite, and he milked it for everything it was worth. Because when a kid grows up knowing he can do no wrong, what do you think happens? He turns into a spoiled, entitled brat, bullied by my own brother. You'd think that having a sibling means having someone to lean on, someone who's got your back. But for me, my younger brother, Roman, was my worst nightmare. I was the quiet, introverted kid. He was the arrogant little prince who walked around like the world owed him everything. And thanks to our parents' constant praise and coddling, he made it his life's mission to make mine miserable. Imagine this, getting bullied by your own younger brother. Sounds ridiculous, right? Well, that was my reality. Roman knew he could do whatever he wanted, and our parents would never stop him. He threw tantrums to get his way, and when that didn't work, he took things from me, my toys, my books, my space. If I showed interest in something, he'd ruin it for me, just because he could. But the worst part? My parents let it happen. I could be in the middle of something important, and Roman would stomp in, demand attention, and suddenly, boom, my plans were ruined. It didn't matter if I protested, if I fought back. Roman always won. And my parents? They weren't just blind to his behavior. They encouraged it. They spoiled him rotten, New toys, expensive gifts, constant affection. Well, I got what? A roof over my head? Food on my plate? My birthdays were treated like an obligation. My achievements were dismissed like they meant nothing. I remember one time, back in third grade, I got straight A's on my report card. I was so proud. I thought, just this once, maybe my parents would acknowledge me. Maybe they'd give me a little praise. I ran up to my mom, showed her my report card with a huge smile, waiting for that moment, that 1 second where she'd look at me with pride. You know what she said? "That's nice, sweetheart." Then she turned back to Roman, gushing about some stupid, lopsided drawing he made. And you know what happened to my report card? It got tossed into the junk drawer, forgotten. Meanwhile, Roman's crooked stick figure dog got framed on the refrigerator like it was some masterpiece. That was my life. Roman got to pick our family vacations, choose what we had for dinner, decide what we watched on TV. Every single thing revolved around him. And if I dared to suggest something, shut down immediately. And Roman? He loved rubbing it in my face. Because why wouldn't he? He was the king. And me? I was nothing more than a servant. So yeah, you can probably guess why I was desperate to escape this hellhole as soon as I could. The perfect escape plan. The moment I saw my chance to get out, I took it. College was my ticket to freedom, and I wasn't about to let my parents rip it away from me like they did everything else. I worked my butt off in school, pushed myself harder than I ever had, and in the end, it paid off. I landed a full scholarship to one of the top universities in the country. The kind of school that guarantees success, the kind of place that could actually change my life. I should have been over the moon. I should have been celebrating. But of course, my parents found a way to ruin that too. When I told them about my acceptance, they barely even reacted. No excitement, no pride, nothing. Then my dad dropped the bombshell. "You're not going. You'll go to the local college instead." At first, I thought maybe it was about money. Maybe they couldn't afford it, and they just didn't want to say it out loud. But no, it wasn't about that at all. It was about Roman. "We don't want your brother to feel bad. It wouldn't be fair to him." Are you kidding me? I worked for years to earn this opportunity, but I was supposed to throw it all away for Roman's feelings? That was the moment I realized the truth. They didn't care about my future. They didn't care if I succeeded. They just didn't want me to outshine their precious golden child. But I wasn't going to let that happen. Not this time. So, I came up with a plan. I pretended to agree. I told them, "Fine, I'll go to the local college, but I want to stay in the dorms." They agreed without hesitation, probably relieved that I wasn't fighting back. And the second I got the chance, I packed my bags, took my scholarship, and moved across state lines. They had no idea. For 3 years, they thought I was studying at the local college. Meanwhile, I was at one of the most prestigious universities in the world, working my way toward a future they never wanted for me. And the best part? The degree I was studying for at my university took 2 years to complete, while the program at the local college took 4. Meaning, I would graduate sooner than they expected. It was perfect. For the first time in my life, I was finally winning. A secret life and a 6-figure future. Walking away from my family was the best decision I ever made. Not only did I escape the toxic hellhole I grew up in, but I ended up thriving in ways my parents never even imagined. My university wasn't just any school. It was a powerhouse for success. The kind of place where top companies come scouting for talent before you even graduate. And me? I work hard. Harder than I ever had before. I kept my head down, focused on my studies, and made connections that actually mattered. Fast forward 2 years. I walked across that graduation stage with honors, landed a 6-figure job, and secured a future my parents never thought I was capable of. Meanwhile, they still believed I was some struggling student at the local college. And honestly, I let them think that. Why? Because they still sent me money. Yep, my father, thinking he was paying for my local college tuition, continued wiring me funds every semester. And did I tell him to stop? Not a chance. I considered it payback for years of being treated like nothing. But here's the thing, I didn't need their money. My scholarship had covered 70% of my expenses. The rest? I handled through part-time work and internships. The money my father sent? That was just extra cash. Money I saved, invested, and used to build my life. I had zero plans of ever going back to them. Ever. For 3 years, I kept my distance. I barely spoke to my family. A few checkup calls, a couple of short holiday visits. Just enough to keep them from getting suspicious. But in reality, I was free. And then everything changed. This morning, my phone rang. It was my father. And for the first time in years, he actually sounded like he wanted me around. Roman was getting married. And suddenly, after ignoring me for years, my father was asking, no, demanding, that I come home and help with the wedding preparations. We want the whole family together, he said. For a split second, I felt something. I had spent years pretending I didn't care, but hearing those words, part of the family, it hit me harder than I expected. Had they finally changed? Had they finally realized that I mattered too? But then reality kicked in. These were the same people who ignored me my entire life. The same people who never once acknowledged my accomplishments. The same people who didn't even know I had moved states away. And now, they suddenly wanted me there? For what? To be a prop in their perfect family show? So now, I'm stuck in this dilemma. Do I go back to a family that never cared about me, just to play along for one day? Or do I walk away for good and finally cut them out of my life? I don't know. What would you do? The invitation I never wanted. It's been 2 days since my father's call, and I've had a lot of time to think. At first, I felt torn. A part of me wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, my parents had finally come around. That after all these years, they actually wanted me to be part of the family. But then reality set in. They didn't miss me. They didn't care about me. They just wanted me there for show. Because if they truly saw me as family, where were they when I needed them? Where was my father when I was working myself to the bone for a future they tried to take away? Where was my mother when I was being pushed aside, time and time again, just so Roman could shine? No, I wasn't going to let them pull me back into their toxic world. So I made my choice. I sent my father a simple text. I won't be able to make it. No excuses. No long-winded explanations. Just the truth. I expected some pushback. Maybe a little disappointment. What I didn't expect was the full-on guilt trip that followed. Within an hour, my phone was blowing up. First, it was my mother. She tried the emotional angle. Jonas, do you really want to miss your brother's big day? Do you want to be that brother? You know how much it would mean to Roman to have you there. Really? Roman? The same brother who spent years making my life miserable? The one who never cared about me, never supported me, never even acknowledged my existence unless it was to put me down? Now, all of a sudden, I was supposed to care about his feelings? She even threw in the classic, "You only get one family" line. Yeah, I know. And unfortunately, mine sucked. So I told her the same thing I told my father. I'm not coming. When guilt tripping didn't work, my father stepped in. He started off trying to sound reasonable, playing the family should stick together card. But when I still didn't budge, that's when he showed his true colors. The threat started. If you don't come to this wedding, I'm cutting off your college funding. I actually laughed out loud. How clueless could he be? He really thought he still had control over me. He thought I was some struggling student desperately clinging to his money. So I hit him with the truth. Go ahead. Stop paying for my college fees. It won't make a difference. Well, I didn't tell him. I graduated a year ago. I have a 6-figure salary. I make 10 times what he does. But I wasn't going to tell him that yet. No, because I wanted to see just how far he was willing to go before realizing he had no power over me anymore. And let me tell you, his realization was about to hit him like a freight train. The moment everything fell apart, my father must have thought he had me backed into a corner. That his almighty threat to cut off my college funding would be enough to force me to comply. But when I called his bluff, that's when the real meltdown began. He started ranting about how ungrateful I was, how I had always been difficult, and how I needed to be taught a lesson. And then he hit me with the most pathetic threat yet. That's it. I'm going to the college myself. I'm withdrawing your name from their system. I swear, I almost choked from laughing. This man, this absolute genius, was about to march into a college I had never even attended and demand they remove me from their records. Oh, I cannot wait for him to try. So I just said, go ahead, Dad. Do what you need to do. Then I hung up. And sure enough, the very next morning, my phone rang again. I didn't even have to check the caller ID. I knew what this was about. I picked up, and before I could even say a word, my father was screaming. "Where the hell have you been, Jonas?" Turns out, he actually went to the local college. He stormed into the administration office, full of self-righteous fury, demanding to withdraw his disobedient son from their system. And that's when he got hit with the truth. I was never enrolled there. Not now. Not 3 years ago. Never. I could just imagine the look on his face when they told him that. The confusion. The embarrassment. The realization sinking in that he had been lied to for years. Oh, and it gets better. Because the next thing out of his mouth was, "Then where the hell has my money been going?" That's when I finally lost it. I just burst out laughing. "Oh, that money? Yeah. It was really helpful. Thanks for that." Silence. I could feel his rage through the phone. You lied to me," he roared. "You betrayed your own family." Betrayed? Betrayed? This man had ignored me my entire life. He had treated me like I was nothing. But now, all of a sudden, I was the one who betrayed him, so I decided to hit him with the final blow. Not only did I graduate a year ago, but I have a 6-figure job now. I make 10 times what you do, Dad. I could hear it. The moment of silence when it all sank in. My father, who had spent his life treating me like I was worthless, had just realized I didn't need him at all. I had done it all without him, and it was killing him inside. His world crumbled, and he blamed me for it. For a few seconds, my father didn't say a word. I could practically hear his brain short-circuiting as he processed what I had just told him. I had graduated. I had a 6-figure job. I was making more money than him. And the best part? I had never needed him at all. Then, just as I expected, the rage came back 10 times worse. "You think you're better than me, don't you?" he spat. "You think you can just throw your family away because you got lucky?" I almost laughed. Lucky? No. Luck had nothing to do with it. I worked my ass off for years while he spent all his time worshiping Roman. I had pulled myself out of the pit they threw me in, and I did it without a single ounce of their help. So I just sighed and said, "No, Dad. I just realized I don't need to waste my life proving anything to you anymore." That's when he tried to flip the script. "You ungrateful little. After everything we did for you." Oh, that was rich. Everything they did for me? What, like ignoring me my entire life? Telling me I wasn't allowed to chase my dreams because it might make Roman feel bad? Dismissing every single one of my achievements while they acted like my brother was the greatest gift to humanity? Yeah, they did so much for me. So I decided to give it to him straight. "Dad, the only time you ever pretended to care about me was when you needed something. And now that I won't play along, suddenly I'm the villain." Silence. He hated that I wasn't backing down, that I wasn't scared of him anymore. So, of course, he tried to manipulate me again. "Fine. If you want to be this selfish, if you want to turn your back on your family, then prove it. Come to your brother's wedding, show the world you still care, and we'll forget this ever happened." I almost choked on my own laughter. This man was delusional. "You think I need your forgiveness?" I asked. "I don't need anything from you. Not now. Not ever." That's when he lost it completely. "You owe us, Jonas," he bellowed. "We raised you. We fed you. I cut him off. "No, Dad. You gave me the bare minimum. That's not love. That's an obligation. And I don't owe you a damn thing." And with that, I hung up. And for the first time in my life, I felt completely free, cutting the cord for good. I stared at my phone for a few seconds after hanging up. I half expected it to start ringing again. Maybe another furious call from my father. Maybe my mother, trying to smooth things over with her usual guilt trips. But no, for the first time, there was silence. And honestly, it felt good. For years, I had let them dictate my worth. I had let them treat me like I didn't matter, like I was nothing more than an afterthought. But now, I was done. I wasn't going to be their backup plan. I wasn't going to be the forgotten son they only remembered when they needed something. So I did something I should have done a long time ago. I blocked their numbers. Every single one. No more late-night guilt trips. No more manipulation. No more of my father's desperate attempts to control a life he had no say in anymore. And just like that, I was finally free from them. At least, that's what I thought. Because my family? They weren't the kind of people to accept losing control so easily. And soon, I would find out just how desperate they really were. The desperate comeback. It had been a month since I cut them off. No calls. No texts. No guilt tripping. For the first time in my life, I felt at peace. No more walking on eggshells. No more waiting for the next wave of disappointment. But of course, my family couldn't just let it go. A few nights ago, out of nowhere, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something in me said to pick up. And the second I did, I heard sobbing. "Jonas, please, it's me, it's Mom." I froze. I hadn't heard my mother sound like this ever. For a moment, just a moment, I thought, maybe she actually misses me. Maybe she regrets everything. But then she kept talking. "Jonas, we just want you back. Forget everything that happened. Your father and I, none of that matters anymore." None of that matters? She was acting like I was the one who left them behind. Like I was the one who destroyed our relationship. She wasn't apologizing. She was pretending nothing ever happened, as if that would somehow erase everything they had done to me. Something wasn't right. I wasn't stupid, so I didn't give in. I told her I'd think about it. Then I hung up. But I had a feeling this call wasn't random. Something had happened. I was about to find out exactly what it was. The truth comes out, and it's worse than I thought. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. My mother, who had never once cared about me, who had let my father and brother walk all over me, was suddenly begging me to come back? It didn't make sense. So I decided to do a little digging. I called my aunt, my mom's sister. She was the only relative who had ever been somewhat decent to me. If anyone knew what was really going on, it was her. And oh boy, what she told me. It confirmed everything. Roman's wedding had been a complete disaster. Not just a bad wedding, a full-blown catastrophe. Turns out, Roman's perfect fiancée wasn't so perfect after all. She was a scammer. Somehow, she had convinced my parents, Roman, and a bunch of other relatives to invest their savings into some once-in-a-lifetime investment opportunity. And guess what? It was all fake. She took every single cent and disappeared. There was no wedding, no happy ever after, just ruined lives and empty bank accounts. But wait, it gets worse. Because my parents? They had bet everything on this. They had put their house up as collateral for a loan, hoping to make a fortune from this investment. And when it all fell apart, they lost everything. Their savings, their house, their business. They were broke, which meant that phone call from my mother, it wasn't about missing me. It was about needing me. Because now that they were drowning, now that their precious golden son had completely ruined their lives, they were desperate. And guess who was their only hope? Me. Now they need me? Too bad. The moment my aunt finished telling me everything, I just sat there, staring at the wall. I should have been shocked. I should have felt something, pity, anger, satisfaction. But all I felt was emptiness. For years, my parents treated me like I didn't exist. They ignored me, dismissed me, cast me aside so they could focus on Roman. And now that their perfect son had ruined them, now they suddenly remembered I was part of the family. I almost laughed. This wasn't about love. This wasn't about family. This was about survival. They didn't miss me. They didn't care about me. They just saw me as a way out of the mess they had created. And I wasn't playing that game. So I did the only thing that made sense. I blocked my mother's number. And for a while, that was that. But of course, my parents, they weren't the type to give up so easily. Because a few days later, they showed up at my house. The day they showed up at my door, I was in my apartment, enjoying a rare moment of peace when I heard it, the loud, urgent knocking. At first, I thought maybe it was a delivery or a neighbor. But when I looked through the peephole, my parents were standing outside. My broke, desperate, manipulative parents. I couldn't believe it. How the hell did they even find me? I hadn't given them my address. I had cut off all contact. But I guess they must have badgered some old friends or tracked me down through other means. And now they were here, standing at my doorstep, demanding that I let them in. I didn't. I opened the door just a crack, enough to see the pathetic look on their faces. They looked tired, drained, nothing like the arrogant, all-powerful parents I grew up with. For the first time, they looked weak. "Jonas," my mother said, her voice thick with fake emotion. "Please, we just want to talk." I stared at her. Talk? Where was all this concern when I was a kid, begging for their attention? Where was this urgency when I was struggling alone, with no support from the people who were supposed to love me? Now, suddenly, they wanted a relationship? No, I wasn't falling for it. "We have nothing to talk about," I said flatly. That's when my father spoke up. "Jonas, listen, your mother and we're in a tough spot right now. We lost everything, and I cut him off. And that's my problem because he flinched. He wasn't expecting that. Because we're family, he said, as if that alone should be enough. Family helps each other. Oh, now we were family? Where was this family loyalty when they were treating me like an inconvenience? Where was it when they were crushing my dreams to protect Roman's fragile ego? I took a deep breath. You made your choice, Dad. You chose Roman. You chose to put everything into him. And look where that got you. My mother started crying. Fake tears. Desperate tears. Jonas, please. We don't even have a home anymore. We're staying in a tiny apartment, and I didn't want to hear it. I had suffered for years under their neglect. And now they expected me to save them just because Roman had finally let them down? Not my problem. So I did what I should have done years ago. I shut the door in their faces. I could hear them knocking, pleading, begging, but I didn't care. I had given them enough chances. Now, they had to live with the consequences of their own choices. Roman's pathetic apology. After I slammed the door in my parents' faces, I thought that was the end of it. I thought they'd finally get the message and leave me alone. But of course I was wrong, because a few days later, Roman showed up. I heard the knock, and I almost didn't answer. But something told me to check. And there he was, the golden child himself, standing outside my door with tears streaming down his face. I just stared at him. I had never, not once in my entire life, seen Roman cry. Not when he got in trouble as a kid. Not when he failed classes. Not even when he got pampered into thinking he was untouchable. But now he looked broken, pathetic, weak, and honestly, I loved seeing it. Jonas, he started, his voice shaky. Please, man, I need your help. I crossed my arms. I wasn't buying it. Help, I scoffed. You mean like how you helped me all those years? Like how you stood by while Mom and Dad treated me like garbage? Like how you made my life a living hell? He flinched. I know, he whispered, sniffling. I know I was a terrible brother. I was a spoiled brat. But please, Jonas, I held up my hand. I didn't want to hear it. Let me guess, I cut him off. Mom and Dad are about to cut you off, aren't they? The look on his face told me everything I needed to know. His whole life, Roman had been untouchable. He could do whatever he wanted, and our parents would always clean up his mess. But now they had nothing left to give him. And that terrified him. For the first time in his life, he was on his own, and he didn't know how to handle it. Please, man, he begged. I miss you. I miss having my big brother. I know I messed up, but I shook my head. No, Roman, you don't miss me. You miss having someone to clean up your mess. You miss having parents who could shield you from reality. But guess what? I'm not your safety net. Not anymore. His tears fell harder. Jonas, I have nowhere else to go. I took a deep breath. And then, in the calmest voice possible, I said, not my problem. Then, just like I did with my parents, I shut the door in his face. After shutting the door in Roman's face, I half expected him to keep knocking, to beg a little longer. But he didn't. I waited. I listened. And then, finally, I heard him walk away. It was over. For the first time in my life, I had taken control. I had refused to be their backup plan, their afterthought, their safety net. And it felt incredible. I won't lie. There was a tiny part of me that felt something, not guilt, not regret, but maybe just the lingering ghost of what could have been. I had spent so many years wishing for a real family, wishing my parents would love me the way they loved Roman, wishing my brother would treat me like more than an inconvenience. But wishing doesn't change reality. And reality was this. They had made their choice. They chose to ignore me. They chose to put everything into Roman. They chose to throw me away until suddenly they needed me. But by the time they realized their mistake, it was too late. And now I was free, truly, finally free. So I did the only thing left to do. I picked up my phone and I blocked every last one of them. No more second chances. No more guilt. No more looking back. And as I sat there, staring at the blocked contacts list, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Because for the first time in my life, I was living for me, and it felt damn good. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe for more real-life family dramas. Let me know in the comments what you think about today's story. Was it fair or totally messed up? See you in next one.